Imagine you're caught in a heated text thread. Emotions are flaring, demands are piling up. Your fingers hover over the keyboard, itching to fire back, to explain yourself, to fix it. You feel the pull, anger, guilt, the need to make it right. But then you do something different. You put the phone down. You choose silence. They're waiting, confused, texting again. But you feel free. What just happened? You've been here before, haven't you? Stuck in loops of endless explanation with someone who never truly listens. Answering that late-night call from a friend who only reaches out when they're spiraling. Or saying yes to a coworker's urgent request that's really just their poor planning transferred to your plate. Every time you engage, you lose something vital. A piece of your psychic energy, your inner compass, your authentic purpose. You walk away drained, wondering why you feel so hollow inside. Here's the brutal truth. You're not just giving away your time. You're surrendering your life force. Every text you answer out of obligation, every crisis you attempt to resolve, every circular argument you can't release, it's stealing from your core essence. And for what? To maintain the illusion of connection with people who see you as a function, not a person. To prove you're available for those who would never extend the same courtesy. Carl Jung understood this energetic hemorrhaging. He described your psyche as a finite reservoir. Every reactive response, every emotional rescue mission, every moment spent managing someone else's chaos depletes this sacred resource. That bone-deep exhaustion you feel isn't merely physical fatigue. It's your soul signaling distress, pleading for boundaries, begging you to stop the energy leak. But here's the transformative secret. Silence is your circuit breaker. When you stop responding, stop explaining, stop engaging with their emotional demands, you reclaim your energetic sovereignty. You flip the script from reactive to responsive, from drained to replenished, from scattered to centered. Letting go in silence isn't retreat. It's strategic recalibration. It's declaring, my energy is sacred. My peace is non-negotiable. My purpose is mine to direct. This transformation begins with one conscious choice: to not react, to allow their words, their demands, their manufactured urgency to exist without your response. Because when you do, the entire dynamic shifts. You cease being their emotional support system and begin being yourself. So, what's the true cost of your constant availability? Let's examine why these patterns drain your life force and how silence becomes your pathway to liberation. You know that friend who monopolizes your evening with 2 a.m. crisis calls about the same recurring drama. You engage. You counsel. You attempt resolution. Hours later, you're energetically depleted, staring at the ceiling, questioning why you feel so empty. Or consider that supervisor who contacts you at 9 p.m., expecting immediate responses to quick questions that are actually their organizational failures. You comply, cortisol spiking, because refusing feels morally wrong. Then there's the family member who weaponizes guilt to conscript you into solving their self-created problems. You're the only one who understands, they declare. So you dive into their chaos, prioritizing their emotional storms over your own inner weather. These aren't isolated incidents. They're systematic energy extractions. Carl Jung termed this your psychic energy, the animating force that fuels creativity, vision, and authentic self-expression. This resource isn't renewable through willpower alone. Every argument you enter, Every over-explanation you provide, every crisis intervention you perform creates energetic debt. That mental fog at day's end, when coherent thought becomes impossible? It's not simple tiredness. It's psychic depletion. Your consciousness crying out for energetic boundaries. Your energy operates like water in a vessel. Each reactive yes, every unearned emotional labor, every boundary violation creates leakage. When the container empties, what remains? Exhaustion, resentment, and a nameless irritation that follows you everywhere. You've been conditioned to believe that constant availability demonstrates your value, that being there for everyone validates your existence. But this is a sophisticated form of self-abandonment. Jung recognized that psychic energy follows the law of conservation. Energy given to others' chaos is energy unavailable for your own growth, creativity, and purpose. Those midnight rumination sessions, replaying arguments that resolved nothing? Those are energy hemorrhages. The knot in your stomach when you agree to requests that violate your boundaries? That's your psyche registering the betrayal of your authentic self. Every time you pour your life force into their emotional void, you're choosing their narrative over your own developmental needs. You're dimming your inner light to illuminate their darkness. And the most insidious part? You've been programmed to believe this sacrifice is virtuous, that setting boundaries makes you selfish. But what if you retained that energy? What if you treated your psychic reserves as the precious resource they are? What if, instead of allowing others to drain your cup, you kept it full for your own nourishment? Silence becomes your energy conservation protocol. It's the moment you stop the leak and begin the refill process. When you cease engaging with their emotional demands, you're not abandoning them. You're choosing yourself. You're recognizing that your energy is finite, sacred, and meant to serve your highest purpose, not their lowest impulses. This isn't selfishness. It's spiritual hygiene. If this content resonates with you, if you're ready to protect your energy and reclaim your power, click the subscribe button right now. Join us on this journey of psychological liberation. But why do these energy-draining dynamics persist? Let's uncover the manipulation mechanisms that keep you trapped, and how silence dismantles the psychological games. You've experienced it, that moment when someone's words bypass your rational mind and directly hijack your emotional responses. When a friend demands your energy, suddenly you're emotionally contracted, spending hours untangling their psychological knots. And then there's another person whom you only see twice a year. He deploys guilt as a weapon. If you genuinely cared about me, you'd prioritize my needs. You capitulate, you fix, you rescue. But at what cost to your own psychological integrity? These aren't mere requests. They're sophisticated manipulation strategies designed to hijack your energetic resources. Carl Jung called this projection. When individuals unconsciously transfer their unresolved psychological material onto others, perceiving you not as you authentically are, but as the role they require you to fulfill. Their emotional processor, their crisis counselor, their psychological crutch. When you engage with these projections, you're not living your authentic story. You're performing in their psychological drama. That crisis-prone friend? They're projecting their learned helplessness, expecting you to carry their emotional weight. That disorganized colleague's manufactured urgency? It's their chaos projected as your emergency. The guilt-wielding, rarely meeting person? They're projecting their fear of self-accountability, not reflecting your failure to love adequately. Jung warned that projection creates psychological entanglement. These individuals often lack conscious awareness of their manipulation. They're too enmeshed in their own shadow material, those rejected aspects of themselves they refuse to acknowledge. So they unconsciously recruit you to process their disowned emotions, expecting you to react, to fill the psychological void they're avoiding. And you comply. You argue, you explain, you contort yourself to prove your worth. But here's the psychological trap. You're not helping them grow. You're enabling their stagnation. You're maintaining their emotional chaos while your own peace, focus, and life purpose deteriorate. These manipulation patterns aren't accidental. They persist because you've unconsciously trained others that your reactions are reliable. That crisis-prone friend knows you'll answer their 2 a.m. calls. That disorganized colleague knows you'll absorb their poor planning. That guilt-wielding family member knows emotional manipulation will compromise your boundaries. They're not valuing your authentic self. They're valuing your psychological availability. As long as you continue engaging, you're providing them with energetic access, allowing them to regulate their emotions through your responses. You become their external emotional processing system, while your own psychological needs remain unmet. But silence disrupts this dynamic completely. When you don't respond, when you allow their words to exist without your reaction, their projections have no psychological target. You're not just refusing their demands, you're dismantling the entire manipulation system. You're forcing them to confront their own psychological material without using you as their emotional buffer. Silence isn't passive. It's psychologically revolutionary. It's your declaration that your energy is sovereign, your peace is non-negotiable, and your psychological space is sacred territory. So how does silence transform from defensive strategy to creative power? Let's explore how it catalyzes your psychological metamorphosis. You've chosen silence. You've allowed their texts to remain unread, their demands to hang unanswered in the digital void. You've consciously chosen non-engagement. And now, the discomfort is intense. Your stomach contracts with guilt. Your mind generates catastrophic scenarios. You're failing them. You imagine their anger, their accusations. You've become cold, or you're completely selfish. That's psychological discomfort. It's real, but it's not evidence of moral failure. It's the signal that you're breaking free from conditioned responses. Silence isn't weakness. It's psychological alchemy. It's the crucible where reactive patterns transform into conscious choice, where energetic chaos becomes inner clarity. Carl Jung called this process individuation, the psychological journey toward becoming your authentic self. Not the perpetual rescuer who answers every crisis call, not the people pleaser who says yes while meaning no, not the emotional sponge who absorbs everyone else's psychological turmoil, but you, your essential self, buried beneath years of others' expectations and projections. Silence is where you begin excavating that authentic identity. It's not merely refusing external engagement. It's choosing internal attention to your own inner voice, your genuine needs, your soul's purpose. When did you last hear that authentic voice? Not the one reacting to their chaos, but the one whispering your deepest truth? Initially, Silence feels like betrayal. You've been psychologically conditioned to believe that being available for everyone validates your existence. That saying no makes you morally deficient, emotionally cold, spiritually lacking. But that guilt isn't your authentic truth. It's their projection attempting to reclaim control over your energy. Jung observed that when you withdraw from others' psychological projections, they lose their emotional regulation system. They're forced to confront their own shadow material, their helplessness, their disorganization, their internal emptiness, without you as their buffer. This terrifies them. But for you, it's liberation from psychological enslavement. In that sacred quiet, something profound occurs. You begin hearing yourself again. Thoughts that were drowned by constant notifications, arguments, and guilt-driven obligations begin surfacing. Your authentic purpose, once buried under everyone else's psychological noise, starts crystallizing. Silence isn't empty space, it's fertile ground. It's the soil where your true self takes root. You might notice subtle shifts initially. A moment of clarity during a walk, a creative idea emerging when you're not mentally scattered, a sense of inner peace you haven't experienced in years. That's not merely rest, that's psychological healing. Your psychic energy returning, your soul awakening from its imposed slumber. Jung believed authentic transformation requires stillness. You cannot become who you're meant to be while entangled in everyone else's psychological chaos. Silence provides the space to breathe, to dream, to create authentically. It's where you stop being what they need and start becoming what you need. Yes, this process is uncomfortable. Psychological growth always challenges your comfort zone. But that discomfort is the doorway to a life aligned with your authentic truth, a life where you're not merely surviving others' emotional demands, but thriving in your own purpose. In the comments below, share one situation that's been draining your energy, a friend, colleague, or family member. Name it to release it. Let's begin this transformation together. But silence reveals more than just freedom from others. It illuminates the hidden aspects of yourself that you've been avoiding. Let's explore what emerges when you face those shadow elements in the quiet. You've embraced silence. You've allowed their demands, their manufactured crises, their emotional chaos to exist without your response. And in that stillness, you're discovering something unexpected, not just relief from their voices, but clarity about your own inner landscape. But let's acknowledge the complexity. Silence isn't always peaceful. Sometimes it feels heavy, disturbing, psychologically challenging. You experience guilt pangs for not responding to that friend's emotional crisis. Fear emerges when you decline a colleague's urgent request. Anxiety surfaces when you refuse to fix others' self-created problems, worried that you'll be rejected, forgotten, deemed unlovable. Why does silence trigger these intense emotional responses? Because it's not just separation from others, it's a psychological mirror, reflecting aspects of yourself you've kept hidden. Carl Jung termed this the shadow, those parts of your psyche you've buried in the unconscious. Your deep need for approval, your terror of rejection, your suppressed anger when others take you for granted. All those emotions you've pushed down because they're messy, uncomfortable, seemingly incompatible with your self-image. But they are you, integral parts of your complete psychological makeup. Every time you leap into someone else's crisis, answering that midnight call, explaining yourself to someone who doesn't truly listen, you're feeding that shadow. You're reacting not just to their external demands, but to those buried aspects of yourself that crave validation, that fear being perceived as selfish, that equate your worth with how much you sacrifice for others. When you choose silence, that shadow steps forward. You confront those psychological triggers directly. Why does refusing your friend's crisis request make you feel morally deficient? That's your shadow whispering, "You're worthless unless you're rescuing others." Why does ignoring that colleague's email generate anxiety? That's your shadow declaring, "If you don't perform constantly, you'll be abandoned." Silence strips away the psychological noise, leaving you alone with these uncomfortable truths. And yes, it's frightening to face that guilt, that fear, that raw vulnerability. But it's also the gateway to authentic freedom. Jung taught that psychological transformation doesn't come from fighting your shadow. It comes from integrating it. Silence allows you to sit with those triggers, not to judge them harshly, but to understand their origins. You begin recognizing why you've been reacting, why you've been pouring your energy into others' psychological chaos. It's not about them. It's about the wounded parts of yourself that need healing. Confronting your shadow in silence is where genuine growth begins. You learn to decline requests without drowning in guilt, to walk away from drama without fearing abandonment, to value your peace over their approval. This is individuation, Jung's term for becoming psychologically whole. Not by hiding your flaws, but by integrating all aspects of yourself, light and shadow. This process isn't comfortable. Psychological growth never is. But every moment you spend in silence, listening to those uncomfortable inner truths, you're reclaiming your authentic power. You're building a self that doesn't need to react, to fix, to please compulsively. A self that's strong enough to exist independently, whole, and unafraid. And that's the profound promise. In silence, you don't just release their chaos. You release the parts of yourself that kept you chained to it. You discover that your worth isn't contingent on your availability. Your peace isn't dependent on their approval, and your authentic self is more than sufficient. What emerges when you embrace that psychological wholeness? Let's explore the rebirth that awaits on the other side of conscious silence. You've navigated the discomfort of silence. You've confronted the guilt, the fear, the shadow material whispering that you're inadequate. And now, in that sacred space you've created, something extraordinary is manifesting. You're not just releasing their chaos, you're experiencing psychological rebirth. Your thoughts, once scattered by endless external demands, begin deepening. Your energy, once depleted by every notification and plea, flows back with steady strength. Your authentic purpose, buried under years of saying yes to everyone else's agenda, begins taking concrete shape. Silence isn't empty. It's pregnant with possibility. It's the womb of your authentic self. Carl Jung called this alignment synchronicity, the moment when you step into your genuine identity and reality responds harmoniously. When you stop pouring your energy into toxic dynamics, new opportunities emerge. The right people appear, not those who need you to fix them, but those who recognize you, who elevate your consciousness. Possibilities you never noticed before begin sparkling with potential. That career path you were too drained to pursue? It calls to you now with clarity. That creative passion you shelved for others' needs? It's ready to bloom with unprecedented vitality. Jung observed that when you live from your authentic truth, the universe conspires to support that alignment. And silence? It's the key that unlocks that cosmic cooperation. You begin showing up differently in every interaction, not scattered, not half-present, not tethered to someone else's emotional drama. You show up whole. People sense this transformation immediately. They feel your presence, not because you're demanding attention, but because you're genuinely present. You're no longer the fixer, the people pleaser, the one who reacts on command. You're authentically you, grounded, clear, unshakable. Imagine walking into a room with your energy calm but electric. Conversations deepen because you're listening authentically, not performing for approval. Relationships strengthen because they're built on conscious choice, not obligation or guilt. Your presence becomes a gift you consciously give, not a default you automatically provide. This is what Jung meant by individuation. Becoming who you authentically are, not a shadow of what others need you to be. This transformation isn't about rejecting all relationships. It's about choosing relationships that honor your authentic self. You're not here to carry everyone else's psychological baggage. You're here to live your purpose, to create meaningfully, to love consciously, to shine your unique light in the world. Silence gives you the space to claim that authentic life. It allows your soul to breathe, your dreams to take flight, your true nature to emerge. Yes, you'll lose people along the way. Those who thrived on your availability, who couldn't handle your boundaries, who related to your function rather than your essence. But what you gain is infinitely more valuable. Yourself. A self that's not defined by their demands, but by your truth. A self that's free to soar like a phoenix rising from the ashes of who you used to be. As you step into this rebirth, you'll witness the magic of synchronicity unfolding, signs, connections, moments that confirm you're aligned with your authentic path. The world will resist your transformation. It's accustomed to your old self, the one who answered every call, who fixed every crisis, who said yes to everything. But you're finished with that script. You're writing a new story with every silent moment, every choice to protect your peace, every decision to honor your authentic self. What's the final step to protect this rebirth? Let's commit to making silence your sanctuary and your strength. You've witnessed the transformative power of silence. You've experienced its psychological alchemy, confronted your shadow material, and glimpsed the rebirth of your authentic self. Now, the moment for action has arrived. Don't wait for external circumstances to change. Don't wait for their permission or the perfect moment. Begin today. Choose one moment to embrace silence. Step away from that circular argument. Allow that demanding text to remain unread. Refuse to fix their self-created crisis. Simply be present with yourself. In that silence, you're not hiding. You're claiming your life. Your time is sacred. Don't surrender it carelessly. Carl Jung declared, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." That journey doesn't begin with grand gestures or waiting for others to transform. It begins with silence, with protecting your sacred energy. Every moment you choose quiet over chaos, you're authoring a new narrative, one where you're not their emotional crutch, but your own hero. When you let them go in silence, You don't lose, you gain yourself. Your peace, your power, your purpose. Your silence becomes your sanctuary, sacred ground where your soul can breathe freely. This path won't be easy. The world will pull at you, guilt will whisper seductively, old patterns will beckon familiarly. But you're stronger than those forces. You're ready to live for yourself, to honor your authentic nature, to protect your precious energy. So make this commitment to honor your silence, to guard your energy fiercely, to become who you were always meant to be. Seal this promise right now. Comment, "I choose my peace" below to commit to this transformation. Your silence is your power. Start now. Transform everything.